Welcome to our program. We all love food and we have to eat food, but sometimes what we eat can actually make us ill. But there are some ways you can counteract that. And my special guest today, Dr. Cyprian Strawn, who is a general practitioner but has done a lot of work in research and practice, and he can in fact reverse some of the things that are killing us. Welcome to the show, Dr. Strawn.
Thank you, sir.
Good. First of all, what should we be eating generally?
The thing is, what we have been eating all our lives has been good for us. The problem comes when our bodies change and we start using our foods differently and we start absorbing our nutrients differently. So the good old Bahamian meals that we've been eating from childhood, whether it was steamed sausage and grits or steamed tuna or eggs and bacon, whatever. Everybody was living and happy and nobody had pressure or sugar or cholesterol. We may have had more ground provisions as well. But something switched in terms of the body switched and the food additives switched.
Now, does the body switch because of age or sort of environment? What causes your body to react differently to the same foods you've been eating all along?
All right, so the body is a biochemical machine. The body is basically run by the thyroid gland in the neck. The thyroid gland uses iodine. And this is in all of God's animals. All of God's animals use a thyroid gland, and all of the thyroid glands use iodine. Iodine controls growth and development. It controls how quickly you heal from an infection and from an injury.
So it's crucial.
It's crucial. So there's such a thing as too much iodine. So the first spotlight was on insufficient iodine. And so there are countries who live, their citizens live too far from the sea. And so without sea breeze and seafood, their thyroids couldn't work properly. So in our region, in the 1920s, the Army was looking for recruits in Michigan. And they had a little exam for the recruits to take. And they found out that the children couldn't pass the exams. On further study, they realized that the mothers were making some children that were a little slow or very slow and deformed. They were having recurrent miscarriages. And some brilliant scientists figured out they didn't get enough sea breeze or seafood and their thyroids weren't working properly.
So optimally, really, we have an advantage being where we are, or we should have an advantage.
Exactly. So they put iodine in the salts for that population. Michigan is that far from the sea, and they felt that that was cheaper than trying to buy them a piece of fish, buying them a snapper each day or once a week. Now, that's good for the people in Michigan, but then they said, if this is so good, let's spread it throughout the entire United States. In fact, why don't we encourage all of the citizens of the world to use this salt with iodine? So the US was one territory, but Africa had people who lived too far from the sea. So did China, so did Europe, so did Australia. And so all of them gradually adopted this iodized salt because they had populations and populations of children or mothers that couldn't bear children properly.
And we had it too. I remember when iodized salt was part of what Morton salt was as a child. I don't see it. I think they don't have it as much now, but...
The problem was when you introduce it to a population that already had sea breeze and seafood, the iodine was too much. And everybody who gets sick, they reach their toxic limit of iodine, which then the thyroid has to do several things to protect itself. We are biochemical machines. The machine is thinking, the machine is registering the amount of iodine, is measuring the amount of thyroid hormone produced. And it knows that there's a critical mineral, something called selenium, that is needed as a part of this process. So the researchers internationally know where the selenium is. So the US knows where their selenium is. China knows. Europe knows. The Bahamas knows where their selenium is. They know that we don't have enough. They only found out...
You're talking about occurring naturally.
Naturally, selenium is supposed to be in the soil. They say acid rains killed off a lot of the selenium or bound it up. But when they did the farm in Andres, the first set of experimental farms in Andres, the guys came down from Alabama, and we wanted to grow cows on the open pasture. So we had specialists in pasture management. They knew how to grow a pasture. They know how much cow pee, how much shepherd needle, elephant grass. But the people tested the soil and they said, boy, without this selenium, y'all gonna be in trouble. Y'all gonna have stiff-legged calves, they're gonna have heart disease, the afterbirth is gonna detach prematurely, or the afterbirth is gonna be stuck. We have the same problem in Michigan, that's how we know. So we have to feed your cattle this extra selenium. I worked on the farm in Andres for 2 years. And so we had salt blocks that we had to take out every couple of months. Off the back of the truck, you kick it off the back, and the cows came over. Their instincts kick in. If you kick a salt block over on Nassau Street, nobody's going to go over and lick it to get their selenium, because humans have lost their instincts. Right, we go by TV commercials or your friend, your cousin, your auntie, sister, neighbor.
And then aren't we just a little bit lazy anyway, as far as whatever's closest to us when we can go and eat? Yeah, we're not going to go, you know.
Right, so what happens is, if you have enough iodine, you're good, right? Mothers have problems where their bodies are balanced, they have children, they take their antenatal vitamins, and they're good, but the antenatal doesn't have enough of the nutrients. Our food doesn't have enough of the nutrients. So you have your first child, your body goes back to normal. By the third child, your body starts to do something funny, because you give the child all of your vitamins and minerals, and now you have an unbalanced body. So you had that pretty body before that first child. By the third child, you're looking in the mirror and trying to figure out who that is. But you don't have the balance of vitamins and minerals. And so now the thyroid is at risk, but God had a backup plan. And the backup plan was an adrenal gland would then compensate temporarily for the thyroid gland. So the body is a machine. The body is thinking, I can't sense the thyroid gland. It's my time now, right? And so when the thyroid is running, you're healthy. When the adrenal gland kicks in, it's like going from BPL to going to the generator. You know, you can't have everything on the generator. You can't have the big freezer and the AC on. And so your body is functioning, you're alive, but one of the things is you now stop absorbing nutrients. It's no longer what you eat, it's what you can absorb.
Wow.
And so you stop absorbing magnesium. Without magnesium, there are 300 chemical reactions that just don't happen. But there's 12, 14, 16 illnesses that now start to show up. Everyday illnesses.
And what kinds of illnesses are you talking about?
So it could start up as just a backache that just won't go, a neck ache that won't go. It could start off with stuffy sinuses or tickling in your throat, because you stopped absorbing the magnesium.
And you think you're now having allergies.
Right. Mm-hmm. But without the magnesium, the mucus in the sinuses gets thicker. The lining of the sinus gets thicker, right? Without the magnesium, you can't absorb any of your other vitamins and minerals, right? So it's not what you eat, it's what you could absorb. You get into this territory now where you are not absorbing your vitamin C, you're not absorbing your B vitamins, you're not absorbing your zinc, your copper, whatever it is. And your genetics kick in. When your magnesium deficiency kicks in, your genetics then decide what illness you will get, whether it's asthma, sinus, migraines, high blood pressure, seizures, whatever, from just the magnesium deficiency. But if you get a zinc deficiency, because that's your genetics, your zinc deficiency can cause you to have ringworm, recurrent yeast infection, or you end up with diabetes. We need zinc. We need zinc in order to make the insulin. We need zinc in order for the tissues to be sensitive to the insulin. And the diabetics are not absorbing their zinc. So the tests have shown if a regular person goes to the bathroom at the same time as a diabetic and they have shared the same meal, When you test their urine, the diabetic has more zinc in their urine,
Because they're not.
absorbing their zinc. So they were good all along.
So how do you get to absorb the zinc then? You have to take more of it, or is
You have to add the magnesium,
magnesium to allow all of the.
and then you add the zinc.
Okay, if I can stop you there for a minute. What, and I know a lot of babies don't like to take pills a lot, but what, and I guess it depends on your body type, and I guess it all varies individually, but what key elements should we be taking as supplements?
The supplements, in the Bahamas, it starts off with selenium.
Selenium.
Right. So selenium deficiency is a problem all around the world. All the countries have it mapped. It causes different illnesses in different countries. So Great Britain was doing the research on selenium deficiency in Great Britain. Somebody wrote an article in the British Medical Journal in 1997 and saw heart disease, cancers, and miscarriages increasing due to years and years of low selenium. Right? Besides what it does for thyroids and keeping thyroids healthy, selenium is our greatest weapon against the excess iodine and seafood that we have in the Bahamas.
And then magnesium second, or?
Magnesium then comes in second because without that,
You
you
can't
don't
absorb it.
absorb your magnesium properly. And the magnesium then is the source of all illness. Magnesium deficiency by itself causes the high blood pressure. Because without the magnesium, the muscles around the blood vessels start to narrow and the pressure goes up. So 90% of high blood pressure is just magnesium deficiency.
Wow.
And so you start giving your patients magnesium and you take away the things that interfere with magnesium absorption. So you take away the dairy, because calcium tightens, magnesium relaxes. You take away nuts, because nuts have a binder. Nuts and seeds, even though we have TV commercials encouraging us to use nuts and seeds, and they're healthy and they're full of nutrients, the nuts and seeds want to be trees. They didn't feel like they were put on the planet for us to eat. They want to live forever.
Well, actually, it's funny you're saying that too, because dentists don't like nuts either. They can't stand them because they apparently
Up in your teeth and stuff like that. Yeah.
So selenium, magnesium, then zinc.
Zinc. Zinc blocks Alzheimer's. Zinc is needed as a cancer blocker. Prostate disease is 90-something% just a zinc deficiency with maybe a little vitamin D3.
Wow. So up to how many different types of mineral and vitamin supplements should we be taking a day? Because you also said
After you
vitamin
take
D.
those three, then it comes down to specifics. It comes down to, you ask people little questions. When you brush your teeth, do your gums bleed? And if they say yes, that's a vitamin C deficiency.
Okay.
Do you have
Scurvy
varicose
makes
veins?
sense. Okay.
Scurvy.
Yeah.
Right. So that means that then you're not stitching. The everyday activities break down the ligaments and tendons. Now, if you're a professional athlete, it's even worse. You're not absorbing your vitamin C, you don't heal overnight. So there are a number of athletes that you can track on TV, and they have particular characteristics that you could tell that this one needed this vitamin, that vitamin in this stepwise fashion, and they wouldn't have that recurrent.
And I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of that because you have actually been the medical officer for a number of, CRIFTA and other teams for the Bahamas, right?
Right.
So you've seen this in many cases.
Yes. So some people, their muscles are too tight, so their hamstrings keep popping. Some of them don't have the energy that they're supposed to have. Some of them just not recovering from that injury. And little things, the shifting clouds on the skin, that's a sign of selenium deficiency.
Now, this brings me to something because, we know that diabetics should be getting their blood checked regularly.
Right.
But this means, and particularly for men who don't like to go to the doctors, hopefully you're seeing more men come in at least once a year for their annuals. But to me, this seems like to make sure that your mineral and vitamin levels are working the way they should, that you're not getting too much or too little, that really you need to be getting regular blood tests. So how frequently do you think that should happen?
This was the challenge. Excuse me. we realized after a while, yes, these blood tests are available, but the price for the everyday citizen was going to be difficult. So people were recommending, well, you should do a selenium level test. But selenium levels is $286.
Wow.
You already have signs, so your body is talking already. Shifting clouds, keloid skin, that's selenium deficiency. The eyes starting to protrude, the little froggy eyes, that's a selenium deficiency.
Is that like part of Graves' disease too, or?
Right, so everybody have a little piece of that showing up, and people in the Bahamas, they say, oh, froggy eye, you get the nickname froggy. But that's a selenium deficiency.
Wow. Which, and I know we're going to get to this in the second half, all of these things can be reversed.
Right, the body just sitting down waiting for you to give him the right vitamins and minerals. But the zinc deficiency, rather than doing a zinc test, we check the fingernails. When you start to see the little ridges in your fingernails, you're not absorbing zinc. So we had to find ways. If you're getting recurrent yeast infections, if you're getting recurrent ringworms, you're just not getting sufficient zinc. Yeah, so without having to do blood tests for everything, we had to, you come in, we examine you, we listen to you, and you tell us these different things. So varicose veins was a folic acid deficiency. The veins are getting stiffer and lacking health, but we also realized that the stiffening of the blood vessels was a problem for the blood vessels of the heart and the blood vessels of the brain. So if you came in with just varicose veins and saying, this is annoying and I don't think my legs are pretty, we saying, okay, but it's a sign on the outside of what's happening inside that we have to take care of as well. So yes, you get your physical. Blood tests, we're still doing the regular everyday blood test, but we're asking more questions and we want to examine your skin and your nails and understand details. Do you stool every day? If you go to sleep, do you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Is these things that you can now...
I'm going to talk about that because I have a former colleague who, I don't know, because he'd tell me like he hadn't had a bowel movement in like 2 weeks, and this was not out of the ordinary.
He thought it was just him.
Yeah. But so let's talk specifically about that because it is important to have a bowel movement.
Right.
But how regularly should you be having bowel movements?
Okay, so you're supposed to have it 2 or 3 times a day.
2 or 3 times a day. Okay.
Now, in all honesty, doctors are not 100% healthy. We don't necessarily tell the patients that we have issues. So,
and you don't go to doctors.
We don't like to go to doctors. We go when we really sick bad. So, I used to go to the bathroom every 3 days.
Okay.
Right? But I'd have to have a plan. I would go to the food store and I'd find the bread with the highest fiber. I'd have my X-Lax waiting, and I'd have 3 cups of water. And I'd go to the bathroom that day. And then 3 days later, I'd have to go through the same routine. I didn't realize that I was magnesium deficient. Right? I was on 2 pressure medication. I was on medicine for sinus issues. And I always had a kink in my neck. Right? Like you say, boy, you must be getting old. That's me, that's what it is. And once I understood, I did a certificate in weight management and nutrition, and I was blown away because they teach us a little bit of nutrition in medical school. But the things that this book was saying, I said, this can't be true. And so I started testing on myself. And I would go to the bathroom 3 times a day like a regular person. The sinus issues stopped.
But I dare ask, is it really regular for everyone to go to the bathroom 3 times a day?
If all of God's creatures are the same, when your dog eats, your dog goes and uses the bathroom. When the human eats, and 2-3 weeks later he's going to the bathroom, something wrong
because you had so many, and that causes. And when you get a backup, what kind of health problems could come there? You get poisoning, can't you?
I think I've seen some people with some poisoning, and there are extreme cases where there's something called megacolon, where these people really, really backed up, and there are toxins that will gather in the body.
What do you think about things like Metamucil? It's being advertised a lot, and a lot of people are using it. Do you think it's effective? Or?
I had the big bottle of Metamucil on my desk before I found out about the magnesium.
Okay.
So I was using my Metamucil religiously and getting in my nuts and seeds. But once I got to the magnesium, this was a whole different level. Because I had the big container of Metamucil. Yeah, to make sure, at work, to make sure that I didn't miss out on it. It may have worked for some people, but I needed magnesium. And if I'm using a Band-Aid such as Metamucil and extra fiber when I need magnesium for my sinuses to bring down my blood pressure, to stop the kink in my neck, then I'm missing, I'm just going to get worse and worse. I may go to the bathroom, but these other little issues. And then without the magnesium, I can't absorb the zinc, so I'm putting my prostate at risk.
So really, you can't go without these four: the selenium, magnesium, zinc, vitamin C.
That's your foundation.
They're the foundation.
Yes, sir. Magnesium, zinc, vitamin C.
Now, a simple blood test will show what you are deficient in, eh?
No, it'll show you do a...
Oh, no, because you said some of them are specific and they're very expensive, like the selenium one.
Right, like magnesium. Magnesium doesn't show up in the regular test. The magnesium levels that you see in the test are not a true sign of what your proper magnesium levels are. In order to find out, magnesium doesn't live in the serum, that straw-colored liquid that we pull off and spin and look at in the lab. Magnesium lives in the red blood cells and in the bones. And by the time that liquid that we draw off in the blood, by the time that is showing low magnesium, you deep into magnesium deficiency. Plenty different chemical reactions have already been going awry.
So things like headaches and stuff like that could arise from this, or?
Yes, the migraine people graduate into the seizure people, that kind of thing. The sinus people, non-stop issues, medication all the time. But these are reversible. You weren't born with them. You just need to now fill your body with this nutrient and that nutrient and the next nutrient, and it goes back in time. It's sitting down, it's very forgiving, it's sitting down waiting for you to feed it the nutrients.
Well, you probably brought us to the point where we should talk about reversing these, and the main things that Bamians are suffering from are, and a lot of it due to being overweight, high blood pressure,
But
diabetes.
why are you overweight? When
You're eating too much and you ain't exercising enough, eh?
so that's greediness and laziness.
But, simply put.
There's no such thing. One of your glands is secreting a chemical that is adapting your body to take starch and sugar and make fat from it. It is also producing a chemical that is interfering with the brain chemical that would keep you satisfied and full, right? So the machine is out of sync and is doing these different things, and so you're not making serotonin. Serotonin is the brain chemical that keeps you satisfied. So your food choices are not yours. The amount of food that you choose is not yours. And like I say, this happened to me from age 10, 11 in high school.
So you know from personal experience as well as from a professional one. Dr. Strong, we have to take a quick break. Stay with us. Really interesting health talk here with Dr. Cyprian Strong. And he may be able to help you turn your life around. Stay with us.